Hey everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review. And for today's review, we're going to take a look at the new DC Collectibles Batman Arkham Knight 7-inch Batman figure. Now this figure comes packaged in the same style of packaging we've seen with the other Batman Arkham Knight figures, which is a window box style of packaging, which differs a little bit from what we've seen from the previous Arkham figures from DC Collectibles. You've got kind of this blackish and gray border. You've got the Batman, the Arkham Knight video game logo down below. The figure's clearly displayed along with the accessories. Off to the side, it gives the name of the character, and it tells us that this is figure number 1 in the series. On the one side of the packaging, we have that kind of graphic digital image of the character along with the Batman Arkham Knight logo. And then on the back, we again have that graphic, that digital graphic of the character, the Batman logo up at the top, and then a look at the other figures in the first wave. So we've got Batman, Arkham Knight, which has not yet been released, and then Scarecrow and Harley Quinn, which we looked at earlier this week. And Batman, Scarecrow, and Harley Knight have all been released in limited fashion through places like GameStop, I believe. I got these off of Amazon.com, and I have confirmed that these first 3 figures will be shipping from Diamond next week, next Wednesday. So your comic and specialty shop should be getting them soon. And then down below it tells us that these figures were sculpted by Gentle Giant Studios. Okay, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. Now the figure comes with a number of accessories. He comes with his Batarang, which has some nice detailing on it. It doesn't fold up or anything, but it does, and it's basically black, though it's got a little bit of a lighter metallic color on the edges to kind of give it that blade look. So, and he holds it, he can hold it in his right or his left hand. And then he comes with, I believe this is maybe a grapple gun. I'm not 100% sure, but it's obviously one of Batman's gadgets that he uses in the game. And he also comes with a left hand, a spare left hand that's a little bit more open, and that's mainly so he can hold this, whatever this gadget is. And so you can put that in his left hand. And again, it's got nice detail. It's mostly black with some lighter metallic silver kind of in the middle and then on the edges. No movable parts or anything on it. The figure itself, I think, for the most part is pretty good. I like the upper body. I like how, like on his shoulder pads and the part where the cape attaches to the cape is kind of a more shiny color, and there's some nice texturing on there with the paint application. So I really like the upper body. The head sculpt's pretty good too. Now his ears, at least on my figure, his left ear came out of the packaging a little bent. These are kind of a soft plastic and the ears are longer, so you might have a little bit of warping issues with that. You could probably just take a blow dryer and straighten that out if you wanted to. But the overall face sculpt, I think, is pretty good. It's actually probably one of the better Arkham video game face sculpts to date. The skin tone is okay. It's a little bit on the pale side, but not too bad. And even some nice detailing with like the eyes. You can see his eyes in there, so I like that. His chest area is pretty good. The bat symbol, it's all black and like very similar to what we've seen with the other Arkham video game Batman figures. Some nice sculpting detail. So as we get to lower parts of the body, though, the paint apps to me come off a little bit weaker. From the images I've seen of the character in the video game, this version of the suit that he wears is a much more kind of, I want to say, almost like shiny armor looking, and this comes off more as kind of dingy. The grays are just, I don't know, just kind of very dingy, and then they've done through most of the body this, it's kind of a glossy black paint, and they've tried to do some of that texturing, but it just doesn't look as good as I think it could. Like I said, I think they captured the look of the suit very good up here on the shoulders and everything, but then as you go down the body, I'm not feeling it quite as much. And then he's got the boots, and they've done some, like, I guess these little markings are supposed to be scuff marks on his boots and everything. And then again on the feet itself, you've got the black paint, and a little bit messy on my figure at least. You can see some kind of black splotches on the front of his foot here. So I mean, it's not terrible or anything. I don't know. It just doesn't look quite as good. This figure doesn't look quite as good as what I've seen of the images of the suit he wears in the game. Like I said, it's just not quite as shiny and armory looking as I think I would have liked it to look. The cape is decent. It's again that soft vinyl material that we see with most of the capes in this line, and it goes all the way down to the ground. Doesn't quite touch the ground unless you kind of like pull it, but it doesn't. It basically goes just to the ground, right before the ground, and it kind of curves up down there at the bottom. So I like the cape and how it looks. And again, detailing underneath the cape is pretty good, though a little bit of again messiness with some black marks here and there. And the belt, again, nice detailing, I guess, overall. I like the pouches, and I like the washworks on the pouches. The belt buckle itself, I don't know. I'd have to look at the game images, but it doesn't look, it just looks kind of bland to me. But I like the pouches, even though the only downside with these long pouches is it does limit some of his movement with the legs, and we'll look at that in more detail when we look at the articulation. So this figure stands, if you count to the tip of his ears, about 7 3/4 inches high. And he seems to be the tallest Batman Arkham video game figure to date. So here he is next to some of the previous Batman Arkham. And then he's also definitely taller than the other Arkham Knight games. He's just a little bit taller than Scarecrow, and then he's definitely taller than the Harley Quinn figure. Okay, so for articulation on this figure, it's pretty much on par with what we've seen with other Batman figures in their Arkham lines. However, because of the design of the suit, it is limited in some areas like the shoulders, and as I mentioned before, with the legs with these long pouches on his belt. So with the head, it's on a ball joint, so he can look left and right good, and you can kind of pivot it to the left and to the right, and he's got some up and down movement, not a whole lot, but pretty good movement with the head overall. The shoulders are attached with your standard ball hinge joints, but these shoulder pads are glued to the arm of the figure, so you can get his arm out pretty good, but you probably don't want to do it much more than that. You can see it kind of lifts up that pad a little bit, and if you try to force it up too much, you're probably going to end up ripping that shoulder pad off. He's got good rotation, so that's not too much of a problem. He's got a bicep swivel, but again, because of where they've glued on the shoulder pad, it does limit it somewhat of how much you can rotate the arm at the bicep. He's got a double hinged elbow, so he's got good bending at the elbow. And then he's got the hinged wrist, so he's got good up and down movement at the wrist, and he's got the rotation at the wrist. He has an ab crunch, so he's got good, he can crunch down good, and he can look back pretty good there. He's got the waist swivel, and then the legs are attached with ball joints, so he can do the splits about that much. And the joints, they're not those clear joints like we saw with the previous Arkham Batman figures, so I don't think you have to worry about breakage on this one. He's got a thigh swivel, so good movement there. Now again, as I mentioned before, because of these long pouches, you can't get the leg forward too much. That is about as much forward as you can get the leg. And then with the way the butt's sculpted, you can't get the leg back at all. So he doesn't have a whole lot of forward and back movement with the legs on this one. He's got the double jointed knee, so he's got good bending at the knees. And then he doesn't have... well, he's got the swivel at the ankle, so he's got an actual swivel joint at the ankle, and then he's also got ankle pivot, so he's got good movement overall with the ankle, and then 2 peg holes on the bottom of his feet. Okay, so that's my review. Overall, I think this is an okay figure. I don't think it's one of the best Batman figures we've seen from DC Collectibles, but it's certainly not a bad figure. I like the head sculpt. I like the upper body, I like the shoulder pads, I like the paint details on the shoulder pads and everything. But I do think the black stripings throughout the body is a little bit on the weak side with this figure. I just think it does not come off as kind of armorish looking as I've seen from the promo pics from the video game. So again, it's not that I think it's a bad looking figure, I just don't think it looks quite as nice or captures quite the look that we see in the video game. But articulation is decent, though again a little bit limited due to some of the sculpting on the suit. You know, it would have been nice if maybe they'd made these shoulder pads a little bit articulated or something, and probably not really any way to work around the pouches on the belt to be accurate to what we see in the game, because he's got those long pouches. But you know, again, just be wary that you are a little bit limited with the movement, especially with the forward and back movement of the leg on this one because of those pouches. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this figure is hitting limitedly. It's been released limitedly at places I believe like GameStop, and again I got mine on Amazon.com. But next Wednesday these figures will be shipping from Diamond distributors, so they should be hitting in far greater numbers starting next Wednesday, especially at places like your comic and specialty shops. So that's my review. We'll have a full gallery of images for this figure over at toynewseye.com. There's a link in the description below. And as always, we ask, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you're so inclined, please like the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll check you later.